welcome all members, everyone in the gallery, and everyone on the live stream. Glad everybody's with us. The second item on the agenda is the land acknowledgement, and Councillor Grace has that this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which consists of the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation. We understand this land holds immense significance to the people of Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We appreciate those who live and work alongside us today and who continue the traditions of their ancestors as stewards of the land we are privileged to inhabit. We thank them for the contributions they have made in both caring for the land and in shaping this community. We commit to truth and reconciliation, to acknowledging the truth about what happened to Indigenous peoples because of colonization, and to reconciliation, which begins with each and every one of us. As a local government and public organization, we are dedicated to learning about Indigenous culture, to fostering a better relationship with First Nations and their people, and we commit ourselves to actions that move us forward on a path to healing along with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation.
Thank you. Third item on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those you'd like to declare at this time. Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime if you need to. Item 4 is additions, deletions, or amendments. We do have one amendment. It's recommended that council amend the agenda to remove item 6.1, zoning bylaw amendment Z-2025-072 for Cayley, as this application is to be addressed without a formal zoning bylaw amendment. Is there a mover and seconder for that? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Mayette. Any questions or comments to that one? Seeing Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor. What exactly does that mean?
I can turn it over to the county planner. She can explain it.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So the application for the zoning bylaw amendment was to facilitate a surplus farm dwelling severance. There is language in the comprehensive zoning bylaw of the town to allow that to occur without a formal rezoning application. But we did receive feedback after the housekeeping amendments in 2024, indicating that there might be some challenges to the way that the provisions were worded. And so in an abundance of caution, we have been processing the surplus farm dwelling severance applications and asking for a zoning bylaw amendment to be accompanying that. We appreciate that municipality has provided direction on this already through the approval of the amendments in 2024. And so we are looking to move that forward without the need for a zoning bylaw amendment. And we would be looking to refund the application fee to the applicant.
Thank you. Thank you for that explanation.
Anything else from anybody? If not, I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Thank you. Okay, so that moves us on to item 7. Which is reports of municipal officers and committees. And so we're on to 7.1. The first one there is minor revision to draft plan 41T-2016-02.46 and zoning bylaw amendment Z-2025-047 for Blue Water. And I'll turn that over to the planner.
Thank you again, through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So the applicant, Barry's Construction and Insulation Limited, has applied for a zoning bylaw amendment and a minor revision to the draft plan of subdivision. Council, we had a meeting before council in December 15, 2025, where we heard comments from council and the public. No decision was made at that particular meeting. The applicant did subsequently revise their application. So what was previously presented to council was 3 buildings on 3 separate lots. They were each to be 5-story apartment buildings. The applicant has since changed the proposal and removed one of the proposed buildings. So there are now 2 proposed buildings, both at 5 stories. This reduced the number of lots proposed, as well as reducing the number of residential units that are proposed. The applicant is now proposing the 2 buildings for a total of 196 residential units. The applicant does still require a zoning bylaw amendment and also a minor revision to the draft plan of subdivision. With respect to the modification to the draft plan of subdivision, the applicant is looking to increase the number of units in the draft plan of subdivision, and specifically the number of units on this block, which is currently referred to as block 258. They are looking to relabel that block from 258 and include a new block 286. And so we have included revised conditions for the municipality to consider, as well as a revised draft plan of subdivision. I do want to note that upon my review for tonight's meeting, there does appear to be a discrepancy in the total number of units on the draft plan. That's a discrepancy of approximately 4 units. It doesn't impact the intent of the current applications. It's just a matter of confirming the underlying numbers with Barry's construction before taking a report forward to the county for approval. But we are seeking town council's endorsement of the conditions and the revised draft plan, subject to that minor change to the number of units. The applicant, as noted, still requires a zoning bylaw amendment. So the current property is in an R4-2 zone, which is the residential fourth density special zone. The applicant is seeking relief for the lot area and building height provisions of the zoning bylaw. They no longer require relief for landscape open space. As it relates to landscape open space, the bylaw for the R4 zone does require 30% of the lot to be dedicated to landscape open space. And in this case, the applicant is proposing 37% on block 258 and 35% on the new proposed block 286. As it relates to height, the applicant is seeking to increase the height from what is permitted in the R4 zone, which is 12 meters in height, and they are seeking 17.5 meters in height. The 17.5 meters is permitted elsewhere in Port Elgin on the main intersection, 2 blocks on either side of the main intersection, Highway 21, Goddard Street in Port Elgin. The subject lands are not in that area where a higher building is permitted, and so the applicant is seeking to increase for this site specifically. Staff have reviewed the proposal, and we are recommending approval of the 5 stories in this case, or 17.5 meters. To align with the height provisions that are applied elsewhere in Port Elgin, we are recommending that the setbacks be outlined in terms of when you go to a higher building, the setbacks change depending on the building. And so you'll see in the draft bylaw, which is in the bylaw agenda section of, the bylaw section of this agenda, you will see those setbacks referenced there. The setbacks are a minimum, and the applicant is actually exceeding the setbacks required both in the R4 zone and in those areas of Port Elgin where higher buildings are permitted. The only exception is on the south side of the proposed block, on this most southern block proposed on the site. The bylaw would require 9 meters to the most southern boundary. The applicant is proposing 8.4 meters, which staff are recommending be rounded to 8 meters, just to allow for flexibility in the final building design. As it relates to the lot area, the applicant has reduced the relief required for the minimum lot area. The applicant requires 10,320 square meters and is proposing 10,312 square meters on block 258, and on the new proposed block 286, 10,313 meters. And again, that's a product of density, where the zoning bylaw calculates density based on a area per unit. And in this case, the difference between what is required and what is proposed is minor, and staff feel that it is appropriate. I did just want to touch on shortly with respect to density. So the density on the 2 blocks is now proposed to be 95 units per hectare, which does put it in the high density category. Staff have reviewed the high density policies in the official plan. We've also reviewed the proposal against the intensification and infilling policies of the official plan, and feel that the applicant has satisfied those policies. As it relates to transportation, at the public meeting, we were not yet in receipt of the transportation study. That has since been provided. The study did identify that the area intersections are operating in an appropriate, acceptable level of service, I should say, and will continue to operate at acceptable levels of service upon full build out of the project. And this includes not only the subject lands, but also includes background traffic from existing and proposed development in the area. Town staff did note at the time of their submission of their comments that the traffic study did not take into account the lands immediately to the south of this site, and the applicant subsequently provided an updated transportation study as of last week, which has been reviewed by both town staff and transportation staff from the county and found to be acceptable. For this reason, and all of the others noted in the report, staff are recommending approval of the applications. We are seeking your endorsement of the conditions of draft plan approval before forwarding that to the county for a decision. And we are also asking that council resolve no further notice is necessary with respect to the change in the bylaw, which is the addition of the specific height-related provisions and the removal of the landscaping, relief for landscaping. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. So there is a resolution that council provide direction to the County of Bruce Approval Authority to approve minor revision to draft plan of subdivision 41T-2016-2.46 Blue Water by Barry's Construction and Insulation Limited in accordance with the draft plan and conditions of draft approval attached. And the council approves zoning bylaw amendment Z-2025-047 Blue Water and bylaw 29-2026. And the council resolved that no further notice is necessary with respect to the minor change in the proposed zoning bylaw amendment in accordance with the provisions of Section 3417 of the Planning Act. Is there a mover and seconder for this resolution? Moved by Councillor Mayette, seconder. Councillor Davinsky, questions or comments from the members? Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. My first question is actually to you, or maybe to the planner. We're being asked to provide a recommendation for approval at the county, but it is the county's responsibility to approve or not approve this. Is that correct?
Yes, if I may, through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So the county is the approval authority for the revision to the draft plan of subdivision. The town is the approval authority for the zoning bylaw amendment.
All right, thank you. Few comments then. This, obviously, we've seen this before, and there's been significant interest amongst the community, particularly the residents, some of whom are in the room here today. And those concerns were valid, in my opinion. The overlook from the balconies onto people's backyards and the density that was being requested were concerns that had significant merit. The shadow studies were significant and affecting those residents that weren't expecting that when they purchased homes in that area. I believe that the developer has listened to those concerns and has made significant, I mean, going from 3 buildings to 2 buildings, significant changes to the draft plan of subdivision to address those specific concerns, and has gone a long way to doing that. The traffic, there are potentially traffic concerns, but the traffic study, as it's written with the streets that are in service today, identifies no significant problems. But when you consider the fact that going forward, we're going to be adding a couple more streets there. Ridge Street is being constructed as we speak. So instead of being able to access that development from either Ivings Drive or, say, Bruce Street, now you can access it from the south up through, you will be able to shortly access it from the south. And presumably in the future, Lake Range Drive, which is the street that comes right out of Walmart, straight down at some point in time, that will be developed. There's already the roundabout at the end there. It signifies that there's sooner or later going to be through roads through there. So I think the traffic has been addressed. The development needs to be viable. We've been petitioning our developers to come up with rental housing, to increase the stock of rental housing in our community, because it's a factor of supply and demand, and as the demand goes up, the supply goes up. Sure, I mean the demand will be diminished, and we've already seen movement in in the cost of rental housing. And this is just going to add to that. And I think it's for that reason, it's something that we need. We're still not at a point where we have enough housing stock in our community. Otherwise, the developer wouldn't be building this. He's not going to put this type of investment in the community if he doesn't see a need for it going forward. And in order to make this viable, he needs to keep the number of units up, which necessitates adding the extra story. And anybody who moves into future developments, which are either to the south or to the west of this one, will know what they're getting into. They'll be able to make that decision with full knowledge that there's a apartment building in their area. Maybe it'll be a higher density housing. We don't know. We haven't seen anything on those, but it'll be with eyes wide open going into those things. So for these reasons, I'm in a position to support this application for redevelopment of the site, and I hope that it goes through, and I think this will be a welcome development to what is actually Saugeen Township. But yes, it'll be the extension of Port Elgin. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for the comments from the members. Councillor Grace?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So one of my questions has been addressed already by the planner about the completion of the traffic study that was mentioned in the staff report. I do have a couple of other questions. If this was to be approved during the site plan control phase, could we add berms to the landscaping, or I'm just thinking of in Southampton years ago, behind the Tim Hortons, there's a row of homes, and they added a berm there, which I think is very successful in muffling noise, in blocking the view. And so I'm just wondering if that's something that could be looked at during the site plan control phase, if we came to that.
The Development Services Officer.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. Yeah, there are additional details that can be looked at the detailed site planning stage, provided they're not creating any conflicts with any of the drainage solutions that are required for the site, or any of the different lot grading requirements. But yes, there are additional details that could be looked at and discussed with the developer when it comes back at the site plan stage.
Along the same line, a number of people in their emails were concerned about light pollution from the parking lots under the new plan, and what measures would be implemented to mitigate light pollution from the parking lot lights.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. It is typical that a photometrics plan is required to be submitted as part of the site plan control application and would be reviewed by staff and also the Accessibility Advisory Committee to ensure that the lighting on the site doesn't create any of that light pollution.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of comments then. First of all, I want to thank residents for your emails, your input. And I'm sorry that some people bought here with the understanding that this would be R1 and R2 dwellings for whatever reason. I think the reality is that if this proposal is turned down, Barry's Construction, under the current zoning, can build 3 12-meter apartment buildings, 3 to 4 stories, without any special approval from council, that those apartment buildings would likely be in the same configuration as the original proposal. This proposal, I think Barry's Construction has come back with revisions which significantly reduce the impact upon affected residents, most of them. There are a couple of townhouses at the end. I have it written down there, but 248, 249 maybe, that are still going to be affected by shade. But as I said, I think that the compromise presented now is a better outcome than the original proposal, even if it was a reduced story height. So for that reason, I will be supporting the proposal.
Thank you. Further comments from the members? We'll come over here, I guess, Councillor Davinsky, and then, yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Up until this morning, I was back and forth on this issue, fence sitting, and I bothered a lot of people on Sunday and again Monday, and I thank them for taking time to talk to me. Speaking of thanks, I want to thank everyone who has taken part from the area. They may not hear the decision that they want to hear, but it was great to see them engaged. And so that council had an opportunity to say, well, let's look at this again. The developer, Barry's Construction, had an opportunity to say, let's look at it again. That only happens when there's the engagement we had December 15th. Many of the things that I was going to say have already been said. I remember asking Barry's Construction on December 15th, could we reduce, if we're going to stay at 5 stories, can we reduce from 3 buildings to 2 buildings and then reconfigure those buildings? And sure enough, that's exactly what they did. They're down to 2. They are reconfigured so they aren't as invasive, if you will, but you still have the 5 stories. I mean, you have to give and get. That's the way it comes. I've seen the shadow study, and with the 2 reconfigured buildings, it appears to have answered the issues that we had, except save for Councillor Grace mentioned the 2 townhouses at the end of one site. And maybe we'll have something to solve that as well, Mr. Mayor. I don't know. The reconfiguration has allowed more space between the buildings and the existing homes. The parking lot will be between the homes and the reconfigured buildings, but there's plenty of room to perhaps plant, I like the berm idea, but then perhaps plant mature bushes or some other thick vegetation that would pretty well eliminate vehicle light shine through. This could be fleshed out, and I'm sure it will be during site plan control. But again, as it was mentioned by Councillor Grace, it worked beautifully behind Tim Hortons in Southampton. As a matter of fact, you don't even think of homes being there anymore. So it's nice to know that there's something that can be done. Certainly, as Candace says, we'll have to look at it for drainage and what have you. So I think many of the complaints have been addressed, more so than I thought, even though I asked a lot of questions on that and asked for a lot of things to happen. So I'm quite pleased with that. And like Councillor Grace, I'm now prepared to support this project. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Further questions or comments from the members? Councillors, oh, sorry, I'll get the Deputy Mayor and then come back to Stag.
Thank you, and through you, I just wanted to also echo the comment about the berm. However, with a bit of a caveat, I think buffering between uses, sometimes when they're in conflict, is a good idea. These are 2 residential uses, but there's still a good reason for a decent buffer between. However, there is now distance there. The idea with the berm, what happened in Southampton beside the Tim Hortons, there's a really dense evergreen planting on top of it, which effectively creates a wall quite high. So just as the berm gets considered, just, because I hope it will be, keep in mind this idea about what that means in terms of height and buffering, because a buffer's good, but if there were concerns about shading in a backyard, certainly a high enough berm with then a very dense planting potentially on top of it of evergreens, it might create that wall that maybe is not desirable. But a berm is a good idea, and the example from Southampton is one that I feel was very successful. I wanted to ask, though, with the transportation study, and I realized something got sent to us this afternoon. I've had some issues with my laptop, so I didn't see the revised study this afternoon yet. But I wanted to ask, and I don't know exactly where the question should go, Mr. Mayor, but this is probably not a developer question, but it's one thing for a transportation report to say that there's no issues. However, we all know that there's changes coming, and Councillor Mayette hinted at, some roads being extended and, the completion of Ridge Street out there. I wanted to ask two questions. What is the anticipated timeline, and who will be responsible for that extension of Bruce Street out to the CAW Road? And I realize it's not necessarily part of this application, but it does have to do with transportation patterns in this area. Do we have, because we're getting closer, and there will be an extension required of Bruce Street across the front of this development to bring it to the edge of the property. What is the anticipation in terms of the timeline? And will it be the town that has to construct that road, or will it be developers who own adjacent property there prior to them having projects? Then I have a comment after that.
Sure. The Development Services Officer.
Thank you, Mayor Charbonneau. If I may, I would ask that that question be directed to Rahul, our Manager of Engineering.
That'd be a good idea. And there he is, the Manager of Engineering.
Thank you, and good evening through you, Mr. Mayor. The Bruce Street north of Bruce Road 25 is our responsibility. But the intersection itself, it will be county. So we have applied for that road sections for a grant, and I'm not sure what happened at the federal government level. They actually redirected our grant applications to another grant, I think, which is called Building Community Strong Canada. We applied for a different grant, but they just redirected our grant application, and we are waiting to hear back from them. In regards to the intersection, the county actually undertook a transportation study in back days, and a roundabout is recommended at the intersection, which will be a single lane roundabout. So we are just waiting to hear back from the grant administration.
So what I heard you say was that at the intersection of the CAW Road and the Bruce Street extension, there has been some work done that would lead to a single lane roundabout there, but the stretch of Bruce Street from there over to this property is our responsibility, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that the federal government supports us with some grant dollars. The stretch that's in front of the building, though, that we're talking about, the two apartment buildings, that's the developer's responsibility. Is that correct?
Candace?
Thank you. So as part of the review of this proposal, there's going to be, because this is a town, this is town land, and they don't necessarily have access onto a fully constructed road at this point. Our bylaw allows us to enter into an agreement, such as a subdivision agreement, that will allow for this development to continue. And we'll be looking temporarily to negotiate easements for access for this development. So there would be a portion of the road, I believe, just to the northern entry to the site to allow for the construction of the first building, phase 1, and that would be done by the developer to gain access.
Which your comment plays right into my comment, which was, has this take shape, should it pass, the connectivity in that whole area, we need to keep an eye on that, because it's one thing with the roads, but it's also about people walking and bicycles and that sort of thing. And, I just wanted to make that comment that when we think about movement and we think of traffic, often we're talking about vehicular traffic, but, there is opportunity from there for people to bike to get to trails, to bike to get to retail opportunities, to restaurants, but also to walk as well. So I just wanted to put a highlight on connectivity. And I hope that some of these traffic studies that are being done are being thought about, not just for vehicular traffic in the immediate area, but connections with surrounding activity and amenities that people in these buildings, people in these neighborhoods would take advantage of. But I do appreciate that the developer came back with something that took into account many of the comments from the public. And, I respect that and appreciate seeing a different application this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stack?
Thank you. Just a couple of quick questions. With the conditions, the conditions of draft approval, just can I get educated that we can't put conditions in this, we can't put provisions in the conditions of draft approval that provide for an obligation to include things like berms, additional landscaping to protect or to mitigate lighting? Like, I understand there's bylaws and requirements, but do we have an opportunity or the power to make any additional changes to the draft approval?
Well, it's that, the planner?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So certainly the county or the town could require additional conditions through the process. I think in this case, we haven't gone to that extent to add additional conditions to the existing Blue Water draft approval, because we know the next step in the process, should this application be approved this evening, would be to go to site plan control. And so that would likely be a better mechanism.
Okay, and sorry, just further education. So if we go through the site approval process, is there is it guaranteed that we can mandate these types of additional requirements that I think many of us around the table are thinking through?
Development Services Officer?
So similar to any other site plan control application, it will come before council seeking feedback before it goes for approval by the CAO. So the comments that are coming up tonight, definitely the developer is aware of those. And so those are the types of things that we'll be looking for when we see the submission that comes through from the developer. And then we'll be seeking feedback from council on that as well.
Okay, just another procedural question. So we go through that process. Does the developer have an opportunity to challenge or push back against whatever requirements we put into that site plan process?
It is, my apologies through you, Mayor Charbonneau. It is a site plan control agreement. And so those agreements are negotiated between the developer and the town. And so staff begin those negotiations and make recommendations for what should be included in that agreement. But then when it's brought forward to council, if there are additional items that they would like to see as part of that agreement, then those can be brought forward at that point.
Sorry, so I think what I'm sort of trying to lead us to is, what additional comfort can we provide the folks that have concerns with the lighting disturbance, the noise disturbance, that sort of we can ensure that there will be appropriate sort of dampers, is the term I'll use, put in place, if we're not putting it in the conditions of draft approval that we're looking to approve today?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So the appropriate place for those recommendations, those requirements, is within the site plan control agreement and as part of those site plan drawings that accompany that agreement. So The set of drawings we have now don't get to the detailed level of design for engineering or for landscaping, but those will be required at the site plan approval stage and would be negotiated as part of that agreement.
Okay, so I think the point I'm trying to get is we're sort of, feels to me like we're a bit hamstrung because we're awaiting a future process. I think we've all articulated, or not all, I shouldn't say, some of us have articulated concerns. I think, overall I'm contented with the changes. And I think some of the folks in the room, I was pretty clear when we met that the concern I had was how close the buildings were to the home. I think I was just hoping, and it sounds like that's not the process, and I think that's going to cause some frustration, but we can't get commitments. And maybe I don't understand why we can't put some additional conditions in the draft approval before we approve today, if that's where we go, or before we're voting on it, because it seems like a pretty, if there's no, maybe my rephrase it, if there's no legal reason we can't do it, I don't know why we wouldn't put it in today, separate and distinct from whether that's the standard process. So I think maybe that's, so just to be maybe asking for the clarification, is there a legal reason why we can't just add provisions into the draft approval, amendments to the draft approval of plan of subdivision?
Thank you for the question. And through you, Mayor Charbonneau, I'll maybe attempt, and then if need be, the planner, Karina, can jump in as well. So the conditions of draft approval are tied to the draft plan of subdivision, which will be approved by the county, not the town right now. And so the town council is considering the zoning bylaw amendment. So the process would be, if there are additional conditions that the town would like to see as part of the draft approval, that can come out either through a motion that's made by council today or through recommendations that could then be incorporated into the decision that goes to county council.
So I don't know what I'm going to look at the new clerk, sorry. Can I put a motion on the floor in that regard to make those recommendations?
You can. It would be positioned then as a recommendation to the County of Bruce Approval Authority to add whatever draft conditions you're looking to add. So that's how you position, but if you'd like to make a motion, of course, you can do that.
So sorry, you're always better at articulating it. Can I just say air quotes what the mayor just said with the conditions?
So, but just so I'm clear that the condition you want to add is, could you just articulate what condition you'd like to add?
Well, I'd like to see a commitment to put specific measures in place, including berms and additional landscaping to mitigate the noise and light pollution concerns that have been articulated. Or maybe I'll just say to the condition of approval, the approval is conditioned upon commitment, or like a firm commitment from the developer to include landscaping and site plan adjustments beyond what is required to address, to further ensure mitigation to noise and light pollution.
Could I just ask, like, are we talking about buffering here? Like, so we're talking about a
Yes,
berm
yeah.
or a fence, basically, right? Like
Yeah.
something to buffer. So when it comes, and this is my understanding, and the planners will correct me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to conditions, I think we want to be real specific about exactly so I think we would want to say that the developer or the proponent be required to construct a berm or a fence to buffer from neighboring property uses. Is that?
Yeah, that works. That's appropriate.
Okay, so the counselor would move that we request the County of Bruce Approval Authority add what I've just articulated there. I hope that Caitlin's got that as a condition of draft approval. Is there a seconder for the resolution? Second by Councillor Grace. So we have a resolution on the floor. We'll discuss that resolution. Is there further discussion to the resolution? Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, and through you, I can appreciate the motivation behind the motion, but I don't feel comfortable supporting it because I would rather enable the negotiation about what that buffer could look like and how it could be the most successful. A berm is a great idea, but given the distance there and the desire to have some trees and landscaping, I would rather that it be thought about about the best use of the space there to, is it a fence? Is it a berm? How low, how high is the berm? What could potentially be on top of the berm? Because again, the example from Southampton, the Tim Hortons example, it's a solid wall across there. And I'm not too sure that that's the kind of example that you know is desirable in the neighborhood. Although I do agree that the idea of a significant conversation and inclusion of buffering is a good idea. I don't think we should be so prescriptive about what it is yet. I think we should enable that discussion to take place because there's a lot of space there and there's a lot of parking there. So there is a distance there already. And so to enable some positive discussion and negotiation about what best belongs in the landscape space to provide that buffering in the most attractive way. And I believe a fence is probably going to end up being part of it. You know, I would rather let that happen and then for us to see it at site plan, that opportunity. I don't feel comfortable saying it has to be a berm right now. I'd rather see what works well for the site, given the space that's there. So I'm supportive of the idea, but I don't want to be that prescriptive. So I would probably vote against the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. That kind of sums up what I was going to say, that I think we should let the negotiation happen between the developer and the town like they usually do. Because in an effort to really appease the neighbors and protect the neighbors, if we're too prescriptive, we end up maybe doing something that may not benefit them. If you have a berm and you put trees on it, you're going to have shade in your backyard, you know. So I think we should just let it happen the way that it usually happens. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davinsky.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I agree with the two previous speakers. And earlier in this particular meeting, we talked about a berm, but we said a berm wouldn't happen until we had done a drainage study on the same. I don't know who said, whether it was Candace or whether it was Karina, but perhaps through you, we could revisit that comment to say you must have a berm could be dangerous here. Candace, you're looking at me. Was it you that mentioned that before?
Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. Yes, it was a general comment to indicate that there may be opportunities for a buffer, but we need to make sure that we're not impeding drainage on the site and that there would be a lot grading and drainage plan prepared as part of the detailed design. So it is just working to ensure that we're addressing both, ensuring that we have good drainage on the site and doing buffering if that's what's deemed to be appropriate, but that they're not conflicting in the design.
I just want to be clear to, so the resolution as put by the councillor is a berm or a fence, like that we had included both of those in that. So it was buffering either through the creation of a berm or a fence. So it isn't just about a berm. I just wanted to clarify that. Sorry, Councillor Davinsky.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does make a difference. The either way, I think we have to let this play out through negotiations. So I'm on the same as this side is saying, let it play out and then we do what we have to do. But I must agree, I like what Rachel Stack is saying, but I'm not so sure we have to say it's black and white like that.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor Stack.
Maybe just a clarification. I don't know if it's an amendment to the motion I just put forward, but what if we just said buffering, the means by which that buffering will be implemented shall be negotiated in site plan control, during the site plan control process? And buffering and like mitigation shall be negotiated as a condition in the site plan process.
You don't, since you're the mover, you don't need to make an amendment as long as the seconder agrees with you. So we can consider it that way if that's what you'd like. So just to reiterate and to be clear, the councilor's moving then that condition that Council requests the County Bruce Approval Authority approve a condition of site plan approval requiring that buffering and light mitigation be negotiated between the parties. Okay, so that's now the resolution. Further comments to the resolution? Councillor Stack?
Guess I had my mic on. I just wanted to provide a comment and the reason. So I think I've been pretty consistent. I think to the folks here, I was clear on my views on development, but I did want to share, I live at the corner. The reason I'm saying this, I think it's on the website somewhere. Well, I live on the corner of Christopher and Bricker, which when I bought the home was, had a lot that was chestnut trees that was owned by the proponent. And I'll just tell you, I mean, I think I had a bit more obvious it was more obvious what was going to happen. So I do share the frustration because what ended up being built was a home sort of, I think, 3 meters from my bedroom door, and they put the air conditioner and the heat pump at my bedroom window when it could have gone on the other side at the neighbor's garage and my other neighbor's garage. So so I know I share that with you so that I'm not doing this without experience. And I have approved buildings on my street, on Bricker Street. So I don't want you to think it's because you're on the other side. Like, I approve and live through some of the changes that have gone in the community. And I have a sort of a split level home. So I don't use my backyard that often because I look right into my neighbors. So I, got a big umbrella to give them more privacy than me. So I understand the challenge, and I think the reason I'm approving it, I think it was pretty open when I spoke with some of you. I do think this motion is important just to get a bit of additional comfort that we are recognizing that there are things we can do, but that we are also in a growing community. And even if we decline this and push back, it would end up before us 15 times over. And so I think we're actually getting probably one of the better outcomes given where it was at the start. So I just wanted to share that because I do know, and I live on Bricker where up until a couple of years ago, the ambulances ran by a couple times a day. There's a motorcycle that I have a personal vendetta against because he drives by at about 60 kilometers an hour. So I do know the frustration, and when there's construction, people come on my street quite fast. So I just wanted to share that I do have empathy, and I am living through some of the challenges of the growing community.
Thank you. So just focusing on the amendment for now, or on the request for a change, are there further comments on that piece? The Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Through you, I appreciate the clarification and the wording change. I don't really think we have to do this. I think that it's staff and the developer, for that matter, have heard from residents, have heard from us, and there's comments in the reports about lighting and noise and distancing and buffers and all that kind of stuff. I don't want this to become something that we have to do in the future. I just really hope that when things come up in meetings or when they're expressed by a number of counselors about something in particular, that staff are hearing us and it's becoming part of the negotiation. I also hope that developers are hearing us. So, I'm glad that the language was clarified, but the clarification, to me, that's a given in any kind of negotiation related to site plan, that we get the best situation that we can get that provides the greatest opportunity for the least amount of impact in a negative way on any surrounding property. So I probably will vote in favor of the amendment, but I don't really think we even need to do it. But thank you.
Yeah, I'll just make a comment quickly. As it was worded originally, I probably wouldn't have been able to support it, but I think the idea of putting in something in here that requires the parties to negotiate buffering, I don't think there's a lot of harm in that. We were going to do that anyway, and it highlights that it's important to the municipality and to council. And really, when you read through the conditions draft approval, there's a lot of stuff in there that highlights things that are important to the municipality and are subject to negotiation. So I don't think it definitely, as far as I read it, doesn't impose anything, just requires a negotiation, and I don't see any harm in it, so I don't mind supporting it. But the planner has an issue. The planner.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor Charbonneau. Just wanted to make one comment that any condition, whether it's an existing condition or a proposed condition, can be appealed by the applicant. I'm not suggesting that Barry's Construction would do that, but I'm just raising that for this council's benefit. The other thing I wanted to raise is that the conditions of draft approval apply to all remaining phases in the Blue Water Estates development. And so if this is a specific ask for the 2 lots that are proposed in this particular application, then I would suggest adding the language block 258 and block 286, and also having that to the satisfaction of the town.
Any objection to that from mover and seconder? So we'll consider that as being now part of the resolution. And also, this has to be approved by the County of Bruce Approval Authority. So if there are if there's something that we're not considering here today that becomes a great issue, we can address it before it becomes a major issue at the County of Bruce. Anything else before I take a vote on this resolution? Councillor Halpin?
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. This vote is for the amendment, not for the
That's right, that we're just talking about Councillor Stack's
amendment, and then there'll be a further vote.
yes,
Thank you,
and we'll
sir.
have to vote on the main question. So if there's nothing further, then all in favor of that? It's carried, okay. So back to the main question then, and I'll get Halpin next, and then the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I appreciate that the open space has been increased and exceeds the minimum. I appreciate that the setbacks have been increased and exceed the minimum. The southern setback is just the 8 meters, but it's against land that is yet to be developed, so I think that's okay. The lot size is slightly smaller than the minimum, but it is so very minor in nature, I have no objection. I think that the landscaping and green space provides, it is going to go a long way to provide adequate buffering and should be aesthetically pleasing. However, we also owe it to our citizens to have clarity and consistency in zoning. I support density as a long-term solution to saving farmland and woodland, so I'm very much in favor of density. Not everyone likes density. Our town is growing. Not everyone likes the growth. People have been opposed to lot splitting, to ARUs, to having a fourplex on any lot in town, etc. So to answer that, we create an official plan in zoning areas. We sold this to the people. We said that we would have high rises on either side of the main corridor between the 10th and the 2nd, or County Road 25. We said that we can have 3 to 4 story buildings between Bruce and Wellington. We said that we can have gentle density just about anywhere in Saugeen Shores. Not everyone liked this, but this is what we approved, and I think we need to stick to our word and abide by what we promised. Our official plan there suggests that it be 12-meter buildings, and I will only support 12-meter buildings on this site. Thank you.
Thank you. The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I heard a comment from Councilor Mayat, and I think it's well said, is that we need additional rental units in this community, and I've been a long time supporter of affordable housing units. We have 140 units being constructed just northwest of this piece of land, and I'm fully supporting those 140 units. It's fully supporting behind the independent. There's 25 units going in there. And I was a huge supporter of Waterloo Street, those 3 apartment units that were built and housing to follow. I just want to mention a few comments. I'd first like to commend Barry's Construction for making significant changes to the proposed amendment. Building plans in behind Stickle Street and Ivers Drive. I like the additional green space, and reducing the number of buildings from 3 to 2 is commendable. And this shows Barry's willingness to listen to some of council's concerns. And Barry's Construction have done a lot of great work in this community, and will continue to do a lot of great work in this community. And I just wanted to say thank you to Barry's Construction for all they're doing here in Saugeen Shores. I think they're doing some very good work. There may very well be ample support around the table this evening to approve this application. I'd like to provide these comments. When I spoke to this application at the public meeting, I explained my position around how Barry's apartment units construction on Waterloo Street made good sense for the neighborhood. This development not only met the criteria in our zoning bylaw, being within the 2 blocks off of Godfrey Street, which Councillor Halpin alluded to, which allows for 5-story buildings. But I also talked about how these apartment buildings were built first, and then the housing development directly to the west commenced. People knew what they were buying into. And that's what I liked about that development. New home buyers knew what they were buying into. And I really did think that was an opportunity we could have learned from. And the apartment application behind Ivings Drive and Circle Street is a much different situation in my view. In this case, residential homes, many along Stickle Street were constructed by various construction long before the apartment units being proposed were even thought of. I strongly advocated to relocate the proposed apartment buildings at a minimum, across the road from the proposed site, west of Bruce Street. Or better still, relocate the proposed apartment buildings to a more desirable location to satisfy the neighboring residents. There are 2 perfect alternate locations in my view. Ridge Street is being constructed, will be completed sometime in June. 3 5-story buildings at the intersection of County Road 25 and Ridge Street would be a viable solution in my view. A second solution, lacking servicing at this point in time, again, County Road 25, Bruce Street intersection, both sites further removed from existing housing, and both sites have good access for transportation purposes. I sincerely, and from the bottom of my heart, I mean this, I sincerely question why, and this dates back to 2010, and I think amended in 2016. I sincerely question why our zoning bylaw would have permitted 4-story apartment buildings in behind Stickle and Ivings Drive residential homes. The fit for the residential neighborhood just makes little sense to me. I am a strong proponent of additional apartment units and buildings that include rental subsidy units. I hope if this gets passed, I hope that the developer applies to CMHC and that we'll see some rental subsidized units. I hope this development, as I mentioned about CMHC in closing, I would strongly suggest this council take a long, hard look at our zoning bylaw and reconsider where future 4 or 5-story apartment buildings are permitted and not permitted. If we need to amend our current zoning bylaw one more time, then let's do it to prevent this kind of an issue resurfacing again. I really think there were mistakes made back in 2010, 2016 to allow 4-story apartment units in behind those units on Stickle and Ivings Drive. I sincerely mean that. I think we made a mistake, in my view. I have empathy for the residents in this area, and I do question what types of neighborhoods we are trying to create with 5-story apartment buildings towering over the backyards of residential homes, many that were built long before apartment buildings were ever thought of. So I won't be, I fully respect the work that Barry's Construction do in our community. I think they're great corporate citizens, but I just think that it's the right development in the wrong place, and I won't be supporting the application.
Thank you very much. Well, I might make a couple of comments then. I think everybody's had a chance to speak now, and certainly appreciate all the comments from the members and what we heard from the public several weeks ago. And I'll just echo what many have said already. Appreciate the work that Barry's has done between our last meeting and today in terms of revising this application. The issue that I had raised at the time, which was concerning to me, was open space, and you've certainly addressed that by removing the one building. And what we heard from the public was largely, as has been said, with respect to those buildings being in close proximity to their homes, concerns about traffic. And certainly the proximity to homes has been addressed significantly, I think, by the proposal. And the traffic questions, I think, as has been said, will be addressed as we build out the streets. And hopefully that's going to happen in pretty short order. We already have funding applications in the hopper to get that done. I think the key thing to look at here is, the zoning of that entire area and that entire part of Port Elgin, right? The councils, not this council, but previous councils, quite a long time ago, 10 years ago, zoned that whole part of Port Elgin in that R4 zone. And you can see the density increase, right? Like you look at, I'm just looking at Bruce County maps here, and as you look from sort of Sunset Boulevard and you start to head south, there's a plan there, right? That the town is increasing its density as it heads south. And there was a reason for that. The reason is because when you look north, all you see is a whole bunch of single family homes all the way. And there had to be density added somewhere. And the density does increase. In fact, the homes that we're even talking about are a higher density built form than the homes to the north, right? Like the density is increasing as you head south. So that's how you in planning buffer higher density developments from lower density developments. You move from a lower density into a higher density, which is what this is doing, right? So I think the question then is, how do you do that in a way that mitigates the impacts on neighborhoods as you go? And I think by positioning the buildings in such a way that they aren't, looming over people's backyards is certainly the right way to do that. So I think that, we've come up with we have a compromise here from December. I think it's a pretty good compromise. It gets a type of development we want built. It does it in a way that has, I think, pretty minimal impact on existing residents. So I think that all of that is positive. And I would just say too, with respect to the zoning bylaw, we hear that conversation a lot about, we've created these zones. Why do you change these zones? The reason we create the zones is not so that they will exist that way in perpetuity, because how could we ever predict what will be needed in 10 years, in 50 years, even 5 years, right? We can't know for certain what an appropriate built form or what the town will require for the rest of time. There's no way to know that. So we create zones so that a tripwire exists, so that when somebody brings something that is out of the norm, it has to come here. It has to come before the public, and the public then gets an opportunity to comment. This council gets an opportunity to comment, and things happen like happened in this circumstance where we have a discussion, we discuss whether it fits or not. If it doesn't fit, we make changes and we see if we can get somewhere that meets the needs of the time, of the moment. So, no one should ever believe that the zones are created to be permanent. They remain flexible, but flexible in the context of a process where we can, like this, where we can make changes and where the public has a chance to speak and where council has to make a decision. So, so I think all of that, that's the appropriate way to plan a community, in my view. Anyway, all that said is I think we've had a good process here, and I appreciate all the work that everyone's done, and I'm prepared today to support the application. So you've heard the recommendation. It's been amended, so as amended. If there's no further questions or comments, I'll ask all in favor. And opposed? That is carried. Thank you. All right. So now we're on item 7.2, site plan control application SP-2026-001 for 1208, 1220, and 1222 Goddard Street Restaurant Block, and the Development Services Officer.
Thank you. Lord Elgin Estates Development is proposing the construction of one full-service restaurant, one quick-service restaurant with drive-through facility, and 300 square meters of additional leasable space for highway commercial uses. The subject lands are located at the northeast corner of Devonshire Road and Waterloo Street and form part of a larger land holding containing the Port Elgin Holiday Inn Express and Staybridge Suites Hotel. The proposal conforms to the Town of Saugeen Shores official plan and complies with the provisions of the town's zoning bylaw. 94 parking spaces are required for the site, 3 of which are proposed to be on the adjacent Holiday Inn Express property. Staff are recommending that direct pedestrian connections between the restaurant block and the Holiday Inn be established. 4 accessible parking spaces are proposed. Access to the restaurant block is proposed from 2 existing points from the existing internal private road. The landscape open space for the area is 31.5%, which is above the 30% minimum. The attached landscape plan has been reviewed by staff and is generally acceptable. Staff are recommending the shifting of the proposed picnic area north and away from the drive-through lane. The site plan has been presented to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and the committee has recommended minor revisions, including that to ensure that the 911 municipal number is visible from the roadway, that signage for accessible parking is added, and that tactile plates are shown on the site plan at all dropped curbs. The standard site plan control agreement is proposed to be used. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. There is a recommendation that council receive the site plan control application SP-2026-001 for 1208, 1220, and 1222 Goddard Street Restaurant Block. Report for information. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Councillor Halpin, second by Councillor Grace, and discussion. Councillor Halpin and then Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep my comments very short. I like the landscaping plan that they have for this, and it's encouraging when people are trying to do really, keep our main corridor looking nice with good landscaping and good use of open space. So I appreciate those aspects of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Candace, it's mentioned in the report that there is an additional 300 square meters of leasable space, and that you don't know how that will be used at this point, but where is it to be located? I'm looking at the site plan.
You can't go.
Thank you for the question through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So when we're looking at the site plan, it is incorporated into the second building that's on the southern portion of the property. So there's the 500 square meter restaurant to the north, the northern building, and then the southern building includes that additional commercial space.
Thank you.
Further comments, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. And through you, I did ask a question earlier about the additional parking requirement to use some space from an adjacent property and had asked about connectivity because there didn't appear to be, some viable routes. I will assume that as site plan control continues to happen, that will be taken into account. And along with that, at the Accessibility Advisory Committee, we did speak about connectivity in the area too, because this particular project, there's stoplights at Devonshire and there's also stoplights at Tomlinson. It's one of the most opportunistic development to have crossings on the highway happen safely for pedestrians and people who are using bicycles and, connections to trails and that sort of thing. I would also, and I think that that's been picked up because I see sidewalks coming out to the highway, to Goddard Street in various locations that take that into account. Very important, though, to, in my opinion, consider people coming out of Staybridge Suites and out of the Holiday Inn and out of the townhouse development that's happening in behind there to give them appropriate routes to this new development opportunity too. And there's another one at the corner to the drive-through restaurant, car wash and gas station and convenience store will be there because people look for the shortest route. So it would be nice to imagine people heading through that Holiday Inn parking lot, coming across and having that route thought about in advance. I'll just leave that as a consideration. I'm also concerned about the access off the highway. It shows on the site plan, there's a triangular element there, and it is there at the moment with the road, which is really only to enable right turns. So right turns off the highway into the site and right turns out of the site onto the highway. We have a couple of other examples along the highway, particularly on that stretch. There's one at the Shoppers Drug Mart entrance, very small, and there's one where the independent gas bar is. The one at the Shoppers Drug Mart works really well because it is small and it's got a definite kind of structure in the middle where the triangle is. The one at the independent gas bar doesn't work so well in terms of dissuading the left turn traffic. I would just ask that, as things progress, that we really consider how that particular function will work because it is quite close to a signalized intersection and there's a couple of lanes of traffic in both directions there. It's a busy little stretch. Whatever we can do to try and ensure that it is right turns that are possible, and left turns are very much discouraged and not possible. Whatever we can do to enable that to be the norm there, I think that would be good planning as the development progresses. But I thank Candace. I did have a conversation with her earlier about, having those 3 spots over in the hotel parking lot somehow be connected via pedestrian corridors or whatever to the actual restaurant site. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for the comments. Councilor Maya.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This proposed development, it actually doesn't surprise me. I was expecting something in this intersection sooner or later. Usually you have a restaurant next to a hotel. It kind of makes sense. Having a gas station there seems to make sense too. It'll add to the stock of gas stations we already have. But with regards to the fueling station, has there been any indication that within the fueling station there'll be a significant electric charging capacity in there? Because this is the infrastructure that we are told is the infrastructure of the future that people need if they're going to be traveling through the area, and having some quick chargers there as opposed to just having, I don't know, what did they say, 20 pumps, would be something that I would hope to see.
Can we just, because right now we're dealing with the restaurant block, right? But up next is so just hold that one till we deal with this one, and then we'll get that one answered in a minute. So are there further questions with respect to the one we're on for the restaurant block? I would just echo the comments of the Deputy Mayor with respect to that turning lane. There's the one down at Circle K in Port Elgin really doesn't work, right? Like you can just make rights and turn lefts. People just go in, and people used to cut the corner and all sorts of stuff. So you really have to, when we finalize this site plan, we have to have something in there that makes sure that it can only be used the way we want it to be used. The more I really hate to see accesses onto the highway at all, additional accesses onto the highway at all. I wish we could just channel all this to the intersections with the stoplights. But I appreciate you got to have some access, but in which case we really have to have something that makes it so it can't just become a wide open access. So I just wanted to put an exclamation mark on what the Deputy Mayor said there. You have a comment to that?
I do. So when we're looking at this property, this is a larger draft plan of subdivision that's being proposed. And so we have 2 separate sites that are separated by a private road that isn't part of either of these site plan control applications. And so the comments that I'm hearing now about the right in, right out, that's in relation to the private road. And so those comments can come forward as part of the draft approval public meeting that is yet to come. And so just to clarify that those comments are external to the sites that we're taking a look at right now.
Thank you for that clarification. All right, is there anything further on this one? If not, then I'll ask all in favor. That is carried. So now we'll move on to the next one, 7.3, with respect to, site plan control application SP-2026-002 for 1208 Goddard Street Gas Station Block, and the Development Services Officer.
Thank you, Mayor Charbonneau. Lord Elgin Estates Limited is proposing the construction of an automobile gas bar with 12 fueling stations and an ancillary convenience store, a quick serve restaurant with drive-through, and an automatic car wash. The subject lands are located at the northeast corner of Devonshire Road and Waterloo Street and form part of that larger land holding that the Port Elgin Holiday Inn Express and Staybridge Suites is currently on. The proposal conforms to the town of Saugeen Shores official plan and complies with the town's bylaw. 22 parking spaces are required and are being provided on this site. 2 accessible parking spaces are included where only 1 is required. Access to the gas station block is proposed from the existing internal private roadway. Landscaping for the site is at 35.5%. The attached landscape plan has been reviewed by staff and is generally acceptable. The subject lands are found to be within the drinking water intake events-based area within the town's official plan. Within this schedule, where gasoline or an associated product is handled, loaded, or dispensed, or to be used as fuel in motor vehicles, a risk management plan for fuel storage is required under the Clean Water Act. Town staff have circulated the site plan control application to the local Source Protection Risk Management Office, and the developer will be required to establish a risk management plan for the site. The site plan has been presented to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and there were some minor recommendations to the site plan, including ensuring that the 911 number is visible, that the width of the accessible parking spaces are in accordance with the AODA requirements, and that there is signage included for the accessible parking spaces. The standard site plan control application is proposed with the special site development requirement related to the risk management plan. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. There is a resolution that council received the site plan control application SP-2026-002 for 1208 Goddard Street Gas Station Block Report for information. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by Councilor Mayette. Discussion. Councilor Mayette, yes, you go ahead.
What I said before about the electric charging is still something that I'd like to see.
Okay, this time we'll answer it. Candace.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. The current proposal doesn't include any electric charging stations. That just hasn't been brought forward by the developer as part of this proposal.
We'll get Councilor Grace and then Councilor Stack.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is about the risk management plan. And I'm wondering, this legislation was passed in 2016, I believe, or 15 and implemented in 16. But this would be, there are zones in or there is a zone in Southampton because the intake is in Southampton or off the coast of Southampton, where I understand you're not allowed to build any fueling stations now if it's within that first zone, right? Is that still the case?
Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. Thank you for the question. There are different regulations, and so I don't think I am the best person to speak intelligently upon all of the different restrictions. That's why we have the risk management office and their officials. So what I can say is that for this particular property, we're in that events-based area, which means that if a fueling station is proposed, they're required to develop that risk management plan to ensure that if there was to be a spill, the actions they would take to ensure that the drinking water source protection sites are protected.
Okay, Councilor Stack.
Just maybe a general comment, and it was sort of articulated in the last discussion. So this is the corner we already have that really tight bike lane, turning lane, going into the grocery store onto Devonshire. So I just like it, maybe I'll comment that just to confirm. That's what we're talking. I know I can see it on the map, but just to confirm. Okay. I think I'm just concerned that we haven't addressed like that corner is already a nightmare to turn on when there's cars turning left and right. And then you have the bike path, and now we're going to add in like a greater access point because now there's going to be a gas station and a car wash. I'm just concerned we're not properly addressing bike safe. Like we talk about being a bikeable city or town, and now we're going to have this corner that I wouldn't want to bike on. I mean, it's a tight corner. So I'm just really concerned that, first of all, I don't like the gas station anywhere near the drinking water is an issue, candidly. So that's probably enough for me to vote against it. And then on top of that, I'm really concerned with the safety of cyclists on that corner. We already have a lot of big vehicles, and now just increasing the traffic, trying to move in on sort of, particularly on busy times of day, add in the summer and that corner generally. I just don't feel like the road is sufficiently safe for anything other than big trucks to be putting this station right now.
Any comments? Candace?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Charbonneau. I guess similar to comments that I made on the previous application is that these are larger issues that are beyond the current site that we are reviewing. And to note that the access to the gas station block is from the private drive. And so while it is close to that actual intersection, there isn't any access from Goddard Street. This is a private lane off of Devonshire Road, which is where the gas station will be accessed from.
Yeah, no, I understand you can't take it off of Goddard, but it just means more people than would otherwise be traversing that road. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, thank you. Councilor Halpin.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. The town recently redesigned that street, and it was really tight. They took a lane out, and I use it frequently, and I think the town did a good job of reconfiguring that and yeah, it's a busy intersection, but it's a safe intersection, I believe. There's bike lanes there. Um, uh, so uh, I think the town did a good job with that already. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maya.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. With regards to the access to the gas station, certainly off of Devonshire would be the primary one, but will it also be accessible from the Holiday Inn parking lot, just like the restaurant is, like from the parking lot of the existing hotel?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So the gas station block in particular is bound on all sides by roadways. So Goddard Street to the east, Devonshire to the south, and then the private road bounds both the west and north sides of this block. So there is the roadway that leads to the parking lot for the Holiday Inn Express will go past this site. Yes.
Okay, I got Councillor Davinsky and then I'm coming back.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. So to Candace, so this development is indeed connected via the Holiday Express parking lot, and therefore is connected to the other thing that we were talking about with the restaurant and the drive-through and so on. So it really is all connected. You can get access through any of that or no?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. Yes, all of the blocks that are proposed as part of this future draft plan of subdivision are all being accessed from the private internal road.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, if I may. So Devonshire does have an entranceway though to the gas station and so on. My concern, and I'm sorry, I'm going back to the original, is that entrance off of Goderich Street. I agree with you. That could be a problem because you could have left-hand turn cars coming off of Devonshire or Tomlinson, whatever the case may be. And all of a sudden, you could be where someone is trying to get into this. I would like to see us eliminate that if we have access to Devonshire Road that we have to use anyway for the gas station and so on, or the private road. Is that correct, Candace? Sorry to put you on the spot here, but they have to use that in order to get to this second production, right?
I may ask you to clarify the question.
Certainly, sorry for that. Where the car wash is, where the gas station is proposed to be, and the quickie convenience store, the only way that you can access that is either through Devonshire or a private road. Is that correct?
Through you, Mayor Charbonneau. So to be clear, there's a private road that enters off of Devonshire and wraps around this property and has an exit onto Goddard Street. The access, I'll say the entryways to the gas station, car wash are all from that private road. There's no direct entry from Devonshire to this block or to Goddard Street.
Okay, so the question will be one of perhaps more discussion down the road, because I think we can eliminate that entranceway on Goderich and just use what needs to be used here in order to get to the second plan. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
I just want to ask a question for clarification because I'm confused about the process. Candace, how can it be, I'm sure there's a great answer for this, but I just don't get it. How can we be discussing site plans when we don't have a draft plan in place? Like we don't even know these roads exist, but we're talking about site plans. Like, how does that work? How can that be?
Thank you for the question. Yes, the draft plan of subdivision has been submitted to the county, and there's been a lot of back and forth between the town and the developer to establish the easements that are required to facilitate the development. And so we're in a position right now where the site plan applications are before us. And if we get to a point of executing those site plan applications, they will be related to a reference plan. So we can execute the site plan applications and then not register them to the lands until the draft plan of subdivision actually is finalized. And so the alternative would have been for the site plans to renegotiate the existing Holiday Inn site plan agreement that already exists because it's one property. And so there were two paths that we could have taken. We could have either renegotiated the existing site plan control agreement for the Holiday Inn or enter into this arrangement where we're considering these blocks individually on the assumption that we can use that reference plan. So if they're never separated and they still remain one property, we just have multiple site plan control agreements registered to the one larger block.
I guess I don't have difficulty with that. I just wanted, I guess for certainty's sake though, like we're confident that the reference plan that exists is going to carry on through, like it's going to be what gets approved in the end as part of that larger agreement. And that what we're talking about here today is going to stay the same, like that everything is going to remain as it is in this picture, basically, even though those agreements aren't finalized yet. I guess you feel confident in that.
Thank you for the question. So we can finalize those agreements. They just won't be registered to an individual land title until the land is actually subdivided. And so, yes, there is confidence that if we're moving to the point of executing the subdivision agreements through the CAO approval, that's what will remain in place for those individual blocks, whether they are blocks on a plan of subdivision or blocks identified on a reference plan.
Understood. Okay, thank you for that. Further comments from the members? A couple over here, Councillor Halpin, and then great.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Yeah, again, with this one, I believe they're doing 37% open space on this, which is nice. And I, again, want to compliment them on their landscape plans that they have. And I realize these things can change. And I think as long as you make the private road that enters off Godridge Street onto that private street, I think whether it's one or two, so people can't make a left leaving there. I have no other problem with the traffic flow of this. I mean, it's a very standard sort of a traffic flow for this type of development, and I think it should work okay. So thank you.
Thank you, the Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Gray.
I was going to, thank you through you, make a comment that all the questions about the private road, I realize we're dealing with one block, but one of the challenges I see longer term with all of this is the comment about access from the Holiday Inn. The thing about the private road is that private road, whether it's coming in off of Devonshire or off the Godridge Street, the highway, that's the only way into and out of the Holiday Inn. There's no other route through there. What we did with the change with the apartment buildings behind becoming townhouses, there was provision for some emergency vehicle access via that route because there was only one way in and out of all of that residential development. So at some point, I trust Candace's expertise. We're paying attention to the way people go in and out of someplace and the way emergency vehicles may have to get in and out of there. So I would not want to see access off the highway block because, that provides two ways in and out of a very potential busy area with, not residential, but tourism-related activities, Staybridge and the Holiday Inn, and also these new hospitality and potential retail aspects. But, it's the question about the way into it. There's no other way out from the Holiday Inn. It's flowing this way too, through this to get out to Devonshire or to the highway. But it was getting confusing to me listening to people, but yes, this private road is important but it represents a lot of access related to tourism too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grace, and then the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to ask this because it goes back to something in the report from the previous application, but it seems to be related because Candace, you talked about possibly having to open up the Holiday Inn subdivision agreement or whatever. But in that report, it talks about using the 3 additional parking spaces that are necessary on the adjacent Holiday Inn Express site. And that would be formalized through a zoning bylaw amendment in conjunction with the draft plan of subdivision application between, and the pedestrian connection between the restaurant block and the Holiday Inn be established. So is that also really related to this gas station block as well?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mayor Charbonneau, I think they are separate. So the parking for the gas station block, they're meeting their parking requirements on site. So there isn't any requirement for that. So it will just be pedestrian walkability from one block to another and crossing and the lining up of the driveways. So there is no parking requirements that are being fulfilled for the gas station block anywhere other than within that gas station block site.
The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Just quickly, Mr. Mayor, and I really don't have an issue right in, right out. I think it's good access. I think the developers has thought this out well, and I'm really impressed with the landscaping plan, green space. So I'll make that short. I just think I'd like to commend the developers. This is exciting news for our community, both of those developments.
Yeah, very good. If there's nothing further, then you've heard the recommendation. I'll ask all in favor. And opposed, if any, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we're on to 13 bylaws, only one bylaw there, bylaw 29-2026. So the resolution is that bylaw 29-2026 is hereby read, passed, and sealed the 16th day of March 2026. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? That is, and opposed? That is carried. And that moves us then on to the confirmatory bylaw resolution that bylaw 30-2026, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores, is hereby read, passed, and sealed this 16th day of March 2026. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Grace, seconded by Stack. All in favor? That is carried. And finally, I have a resolution this regular council meeting of March 16th, 2026 hereby adjourns at 8:02 p.m. Is there a mover and seconder? Mayette and Davinsky, all in favor. Council stands adjourned. Have a good evening, everybody.